Hey everyone, welcome to Turning Tables. I'm your host, Krista Lepore, and in this show we're going to take a behind-the-scenes look at what really happens in restaurants. I am a restaurant service expert with 20 years of experience in the industry, so we're going to talk about all things front of the house, back of the house, dining dilemmas for guests, and tricks of the trade. I want everyone from owners to staff to paying guests to all have the best dining experience possible. So pour yourself a drink, sit back, and let's talk service. Hi, this is Turning Tables, and I'm your host, Krista Lepore. This is the show where we're going to show you all the behind-the-scenes stuff of what really happens in restaurants. Today, we have with us, full disclosure, one of my good friends. Her name is Leah Patterson. Hi, Leah.
Hello, everyone.
She's coming to us from Philly. Leah and I worked together many moons ago with Chef Anita Lowe at her Michelin star restaurant, Anissa, down in the West Village. It's where we first met. Though Leah and I both are from the Philly, Jersey area, I think the term is called Jersedelphian.
That's right. That's right.
So I think that's us to a T. You'll see as the podcast goes on that we talk like truck drivers. So this is going to be perfect. So censor everyone now. Let me give you a little bit of Leah's background. So Leah is a rare individual in this business, which is why I wanted her here. She actually is back of the house trained. She went to the Culinary Institute of America. She trained as a chef. When she graduated, she went to work at the kitchen of the Four Seasons in Philly. And then at some point, she decided to move to front of the house, which we'll get to a little bit later. And then she worked with restaurateurs like Steven Starr, Mark Vetri, Chip Roman, and then she sort of found herself in New York City with her fiance, Chef John Patterson, who is the executive chef of Fork in Philadelphia right now, which you should all go and eat at, by the way. And then, as I said, we met in New York when we worked at Anissa. But then after Leah worked in front of the house as a server, she wound up then going into service director, opening up various restaurants for various chefs and restaurateurs. She was a GM, director of operations. She basically has done it all. So she's a total rock star, and actually was voted one of Zagat's 30 under 30 while she was in Manhattan. So she is the real deal. So welcome, Leah.
Hi.
Hi. All right. So I gave everybody sort of the background, the boring bio version of you. Why did you what made you want to go to culinary school?
So it's kind of funny. I'm one of 6 kids, so there's a ton of us, and we was always cooking and things like that in the house. But my older sister was going to Oxford, and my younger brother was like learning Mandarin and Arabic. And I was like, I'm just gonna be over here making this cookie and like decorating this cupcake. And so I just really thought about it, like, what do I want to do? Like, I have these like super cerebral siblings, and I just had no desire to take calculus or, I wasn't interested. And my mom's like, okay, well, that's fine. Like, I'm not going to push you into something you don't want to do, but if you're going to do it, you're going to be the best. You're going to do the best. You're going to go to the best place. So I went to CIA and visited that first as the first culinary school that I went to. And then everything else just looked like a stinking dive. So I was
they are one of the best. Yes.
Go anywhere else after you see it, because these other schools, which are really great, and honestly, I truly believe that culinary school is what you put into it. But everyone is like touting these. We use CIA books. All of our chefs graduate from CIA. And I'm like, wait a second. Right. So I can either be one of those people or I can be taught by those people. So kind of to me, I was like, well, why wouldn't I just go there? So that's what I ended up doing.
And so now, once you were there, how long is that program? Is it 2 years?
So I did an associate's degree in culinary arts. You can do a bachelor's program. I graduated in 2005. So it's changed just drastically since I've been there. I do recruiting trips up there, and it's like, wow, like now I know where all my money went to, because it is just stunningly gorgeous. So
what they do, I know it's in Poughkeepsie, New York, for those of you who don't know, and it's quite a campus, right? So then you got out of culinary school. As I said, you went to the Four Seasons. How long did you work back of the house before you realized you wanted to move front of the house?
So I did like a total of like 4 or 5 years in back of house. And then I just think like you should do what you're natural at. And I know that the creative piece of culinary comes with time, but I just wasn't willing to wait for it. And I didn't want to be like a number two person. And I just felt like I would never really gain that. I didn't have the desire to sit around and read cookbooks. I wasn't looking at what people were cooking. I was like, what's the experience like?
Right.
I didn't want to be in a place where I was doing the same thing every day. Like I'm cooked. So there's all this like light coming in from the
That's
sun.
okay. We love it. Natural light's great.
I didn't
Especially this
want
time of
to
year.
I didn't want to like cut the same carrot every day. I didn't want to make the same food every day. I
Right.
really wanted to be I wanted to be involved in more. And that just to me, that was restrictive to me. And I think that, like I said, you should do what you're natural at. And I was like, God, I'm really good at talking to people. Like I can cook,
Yeah.
like I can recreate something. I can recreate something, but like, I really just want to talk to people. I want to see I want to see the whole picture. And I didn't want to do the same thing every day. And in a front of house standpoint, even though you may be serving the same chicken, every single person that walks in there is in a different mood. So
Yes.
you can have a regular guest and you can see that regular guest 2, 3, 4 times a week or 2, 3, 4 times a month. And every time you see them, it's a different experience.
Correct.
So to
No,
me, I
you're
felt
right.
like
And
there is just more change and it would keep my attention.
And that's the whole point of actually really this podcast about turning tables and learning what goes on behind the scenes. There seems to be this thing in the restaurant industry where people look upon people who work in the industry as if they're somehow uneducated or this was just sort of a last resort job for them, when in fact it's not. It's an actual career. It's an actual profession. And you talk about the guest experience, and that's why I loved it so much, is because you actually get to make people happy.
Oh,
As
it's awesome.
silly as it sounds, you really do. And that's what I really hope people take away from listening to this podcast is that we're educated. We both went to school. We're both trained. I went to a regular college. You went to a culinary college. We do this because we're about hospitality and guest experience. And that is an actual profession.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people don't understand that.
Well, I think
Right?
so often it is something that's in between. And I think that is one of my biggest challenges in running operations, large and small, is, how do you motivate people who are doing other things?
Right.
They're a laid off construction worker and they're
an
helping
actor
you,
in New York
they're running
City.
tables.
Yeah.
They're an actor, they're a florist, they're there's any number of things that you could be
teacher
doing.
who have 3 months
teacher.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's my summer hiatus. I need a couple weeks.
Exactly.
But that's also the amazing thing about our industry, because I can't think of any other industry that really welcomes everyone. Like you come into me and say, you know what, I'm an actor. I'm here for who knows how long, but I promise you when I'm in these doors, you have me 100%. Of course, I'm going to hire you.
Sure.
But you also have to know that there's an expiration date. But we still welcome everyone like that because they want to work.
Yeah, the band of misfit toys.
Toys, right? Yeah. We are the island of the misfit toys. Yes, we actually are. Yeah.
It's
But
great.
it's a really wonderful industry because there's not that many other industries. Like I can't walk into, could you imagine me walking into corporate America and saying that?
But I also think that saying that as far as here's my timeline and this
Yeah,
isn't
I have a
gonna be my
timeline. I
everything.
might be here for 20 years. I might be here for 6 months.
20 days. Yeah.
Right.
I do think that you're right. Like it doesn't translate like that, but I think that it does translate like as far as like our guest facing skills are extremely translatable, like just so many things. I mean, the things that I can do because I've interacted with a billion people.
Right.
I mean, I think is amazing. There's so many people that can't even engage. There's people that can't interview. There's people who get in an elevator and can't talk to their CEO. Like,
yes,
no problem. I'm like, what are you worth? 245 million? No problem. How are you today?
Right.
No problem. Best friend. Talk about his CrossFit. Love him. Let me talk about your wife. Let me talk about your granddaughter. Let's talk about, and there are people who get in the room with those kinds of people that can't even
freeze.
Talk. Can't even have a conversation. And it's like, now you're really limiting yourself, and we certainly don't have that problem.
Well, no, I mean, we could talk to a wall and be totally happy.
Right.
But you were right. In the hospitality industry, there is a very specific skill set that comes in useful for life in general. You're correct. I am currently consulting places where the clientele is like the 1%ers, we'll say, right?
Mm-hmm.
can't show any sort of intimidation or fear around that.
Oh no.
And
That's when people,
especially as a
yeah.
woman, you have to have the confidence to know that you can go right up to
Oh
them and
no.
you're taking control of the
100%.
situation. You're
100%.
taking control of their evening. You're taking control of their entire experience. And the thing is, they actually love that
Oh, you kidding
because
me?
they've been making decisions
Absolutely.
all day
They
long.
don't
They
want to
don't
make
want
a
to make any
decision.
more.
Yeah, you
Right.
do it. You do it.
You
But I
do
think
it.
it's
Great.
funny. I think it's great. I also think like, I've always been, the kind of person where, I'm walking in a room, I'm taking the room. This is my room. This is my room now.
Right.
You can be here and I'd love to take care of you, but this is my space.
Right. And that's a great tip
Demand it.
for restaurant professionals who are watching,
You're in
that
charge.
you are in charge. Your station, whether you're a captain, a server, a front waiter, back waiter, a bartender, your station is your domain. You basically are the king of that area. So you're
100%.
in charge. You are in charge of the guest experience 100%.
Right.
And I say this to people all the time, especially when, Dave Barry, one of my favorite quotes of all time, he says that a person who is nice to you and not nice to a waiter is not a nice person. And I think
100%.
no truer words have been spoken. I am the puppet master. You come in and sit in my station. If you are not nice to me, I can make or break your night.
Oh, 100%.
The amount of power that we have to do that. And I don't think people understand, because I have a relationship. If you are good at your job as a hospitality professional, because I don't believe, and I know old school, there's a divide between front of the house and back of the house. And I would love your opinion on this. I happen to hate that.
I don't
think,
allow it. I just
yeah,
don't allow it anywhere that I work. I mean, when
it
I
shouldn't
define
happen.
myself, I talk about a commitment to cross-departmental collaboration.
Yes.
We are nobody without the other
One
side.
another.
And
Right. It's the yin and the yang.
yeah, but I also think that, what you touched on before with like having culinary experience and having front of house experience, like I have always had amazing relationships with chefs because A, I'm married to one, but B, I know what they're doing. So I'm not coming back there with an unrealistic expectation.
Right.
Like if I'm asking for a well done, ribeye,
Venison.
I know it's not happening. I know I'm not getting that in 5 to 10 minutes. Like, right. But I can also say, hey, let me look at what you have fired down the board. I want you to take this ribeye that's 4
This
tickets
ticket,
down. You
right.
already have started. I want you to pull that, put another one on. I'm going to talk to that guest. I'm going to buy them a drink and I'm going to make that happen. Can you, so I can have that conversation where that respect level from the chef is automatic. It's like, wow, I've never had anybody come in here and work with me, collaborate.
Right.
And even from a food standpoint, like talking about, I don't like that flavor. I don't like the way that tastes together, or I don't like the way this eats. Like this is challenging. I don't want to do any work. Like sure, I'm all about the lamb rib, but can we pull the bone, or how can we do this, or
make it easier for the guests to eat?
We're
Right.
always, I think that's so huge. Like to me,
But you
it's
bring up
100%
something that's
about
really
that.
important, and I think that this falls on management training. So yes, you are a manager who has back of the house experience, so you know how to go and speak the language and do that. Not everyone does, right?
Right.
And so if you have, say, a server, that, because you have to go in the back and you have to talk to the chef or the expediter, they have to have that knowledge as well. So don't you think that falls on management training for their staff? Because eventually, even if you're not there, Leah, you're going to have a day off. So somebody else has to know how to do it, right?
But I think it's about setting the tone and hey, what's the tone of the operation? Like for me, it's always been, we're working together. Those guys back there are working just as hard as we're working the front. We need to match. To me, I've always put it on the front of house and said, we need to match the intensity of the kitchen. We need to be as intense as them.
Right, but you were talking about unrealistic expectations, like you're not going to get a well-done ribeye in 5 minutes, but your staff should know that. So shouldn't your staff also be trained to try and not reel in the guests, but there's ways that you and I know this. There's ways of saying no without saying no.
Yeah.
And you have to be honest with the guest. Doesn't that fall on training?
Sure. Oh, absolutely. I think training is super incredibly important. I mean, you can't do you have to know. Like I always get really frustrated. I've worked in a range of operations from like really small kind of mom and pop stuff or to much larger, and like, taking one of my most recent roles was taking taking corporate structure and implementing it into a smaller operation. So like, how do you take those 14-day training, how do you take a 14-day training program that costs roughly with food, cost me about $2,800 per employee to train. So how do you take that from a company that can afford to do that to a company that can't afford to do that? How do you do that? But how do you keep that training? And has always been very frustrating to me when owners of smaller restaurants will say, oh, well, they don't need to be trained. They know food. They're fine. They'll just like, no.
Especially nowadays with allergies.
Yeah. I'm like, no.
Oh my God.
Hard
Substitution.
pass.
I mean, I'll
Hard
never forget
pass.
this. When I worked for Chef Missy Robbins, when she was at Avoce, when we got our Michelin star, I remember a guest came in and he said, you know what? I'm really craving chicken Parmesan. Now, anybody who knows what Chef Missy Robbins does knows that that's not the kind of food that she cooks, it's Italian food. And I knew what the answer was going to be. And he's like, would you mind asking the chef if she would make this for me? Now, this is a Saturday night at 7:30. So it's insanity. It's like Dante's Third Circle in the restaurant. And I said, and I knew the answer. And I said, sir, I can already tell you what that answer is, but I'm happy to ask her for you. So I went in the kitchen and she was like, what do you need? And I said, I have a guest that wants to know if you would do chicken Parmesan for him. And she said, please go tell the guest the Olive Garden is down the street. So, I mean, again, and that is because we were trained in what she does and her style and who she is. We knew that she would never in a million years ever prepare something. Not that there's anything wrong with chicken parm. It's delicious. It's just not what she does.
Also, it's not on the menu, so beat it, buddy.
Right. And that's another thing that people need to learn. Like you nowadays, like menus are posted everywhere online, not even just on the website. If you just do a Google search, they'll come up. So to go into a chef-driven restaurant and ask the chef to make something off menu when you're not a regular, never been there before, and it's at the height of business is really the fastest way that you're going to get a no return on your open table reservation. Yeah. I'm curious, have you used other systems other than an open table at your restaurants?
No, I have a couple friends that I just had a couple of friends. Open Table is going through a massive overhaul right now, and they're changing everything to iPads. They're changing their whole system. I've always been a huge fan of Open Table. Like I couldn't run a restaurant without it. Like just from a guest note standpoint, but there's Reserve and Resi, and I think Resi bought Reserve, or I can't remember. And
Resi, yeah.
So I have friends that have just switched to that, which is I was actually just at my friend's restaurant today. He's using that, and it's really great, and it's easy to use. But I haven't really gotten a ton of information on it. I haven't used it enough to speak to it. And then I also have friends that are using Tock, where you prepay for part of your meal, and then it goes towards your meal, which is a kind of an interesting way, I think, of doing it. I would
think for small mom and pops that. I actually would think for like when we worked for Anissa, right? So at Anita Lowe's restaurant, there was a 15-table restaurant. So if you didn't show up, it was detrimental to business. Both,
I also feel like, charge it to the game. That's part of it. It's part of it. And I know that's, coming from someone who's worked in restaurants where, look, if I had less than 600 people coming in, I'm like, boring. Right. I'm like, oh, good. We're starting with 1,000 tonight. Like, all right, I'm pumped.
I know, but Leah, like right now, restaurants are closing left and right because of business, and especially in New York, it's a nightmare because of rents and everything. I know it's the part of doing business, but then they can't do business. And if that's something that maybe helps guarantee that people are coming in the door, I don't see that as a bad thing.
But I don't think that it's guaranteeing that. I think it's pissing people off. I think you get hate emails, you refund the money that you're charging them anyway. I think it just creates a really bad vibe. I personally, I don't love it. Like I said, my friend I was with today, he has a beautiful restaurant. He's extremely talented. His food is gorgeous. He has 32 seats. Yes. That's it. If someone doesn't show up, I mean, it's hugely
detrimental.
I'm not taking that away, but I also feel like, yes, I think there are too many restaurants. Yes, I think people that are opening restaurants probably shouldn't be. Like, I think that in Philadelphia, there are not enough people dining out 5 nights a week to sustain the amount of restaurants that there are. It's a big problem. One of my very good friends who had a lively and thriving, nationally ranked restaurant and business for the past 16 years, opened a restaurant that was kind of like a sister to her original brand. And they closed the street in front of it. It's been open. She kept it open for 4 years, closed the street in front of it to rebuild a museum.
Right.
And she closed it last week. She goes, it tanked my entire business. It tanked six other cafes because the city just didn't care.
Yeah.
It's like, it's brutal.
And that happens in New York too. When I worked for Chef Ed Brown, his restaurant on the Upper West Side called Cafe 81, it opened, now mind you, it opened right as the recession started in 07, which was a bad time to open anyway, but who knew? But then they put up scaffolding.
Yeah, it's brutal.
And the scaffolding stayed up for almost a year. It's in New York City. It is brutal what that does to a business.
Oh, it's horrible.
And he unfortunately it went under. And it was a shame because again, the food was beautiful. It was a beautiful space. It was a great neighborhood joint. Michelin star again, but the scaffolding kills people. So you're right. The city does have a play in it as well. But don't even get me started with the city and so here's the thing. So in New York City, as a lot of you know, we have the health department inspection, right? So if you're maybe not from New York and you're walking around the city and you pass a restaurant, you'll see a letter, A, B, or C, or grade pending on a restaurant door. These are done by surprise inspections. Does Philadelphia do this?
Yes, they do surprise inspections, but it's a pass or fail. It's not based on a letter grading system.
Okay.
They have talked about switching it out, and it's not even close to as stringent as New York is. I mean,
but you
and
I both know that New York City is a scam. I mean, it's a scam. We lost 4 points on straws not being covered.
Oh, I know. I think it's a racket.
Come on.
I mean, the whole thing's a freaking racket. Because there's also places that you're like, I would literally never eat there, and there's absolutely no way.
And there's no way they got an A.
Exactly.
Oh, there's a Chinese restaurant up around the corner for me. Every time I walk past it, it skeeves me out, and they have an A. I'm like, there is no fucking way that place has an A.
Oh, I know.
There's no way.
And then you're like, you got like Gramercy Tavern that's like,
right,
because they're like, oh, we found a dirty rag in the corner, and like,
right.
Oh, the coffee filters weren't inverted. Critical fail.
Right, and you know why that is? Because that's Danny Meyer, and because
they
he
know
has deep pockets and he can pay. Because just so you guys know who are watching. For each point, it equals about $1,000 in a fine. So even if you get an A, that doesn't mean that you didn't get any points. Maybe you got 4 points. You still have to pay the city, let's say $4,000.
Oh, it's a joke. It's a racket.
Such a rip off.
It's
the
worst. Because I do think that there are parts of it like that really are about. There is 100% pieces of it that are about keeping people safe. 100%. And I really,
absolutely.
But if you have people that are trained correctly, that are Serve Safe certified, that, keep things to temp, that are monitoring those things, if you have the right people in the right positions, like it's, you're fine.
Right. But that's something the guests should know about too. Again, the whole point of this Turning Tables podcast is that these are things that go on behind the scenes, but actually right in front of guests' face. Like, right. I can't tell you how many times that we've been in full service and the health department comes in, the kitchen comes to a halt.
A whole complete stop.
Depending on, I am of the theory that you tell the guest, because I feel everybody should know. I have always found that you are 100% in communication with your guest.
I never hide for guests.
Because if the guest starts doing this, looking around, like, where's my food? That is beyond worse.
I agree.
All you do is go up to the guy and say, I just want you to know there's going to be a little delay in your food. The health department just showed up for a surprise inspection. Every single time I've said that sentence, everybody goes, absolutely,
no problem.
Yeah. No problem. Because they know what's happening. Once you keep the guest in the loop, even if I go up to them, the health department's not there, and I say, listen, we have a PDR of 16 people in the back. Their order got in before yours. You're going to be a little delayed. Are you okay? They always say, no problem. And then maybe I'll pour them a little extra wine.
Yeah, I think it's just all about communication for sure. I mean, it's super important. It's you never hide from the guest.
On the guest side of that, though, it also depends on how the guest handles it too. So if I tell you the health department's here and it's going to be a delay and you're cool, we're going to bend over backwards for you.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you are like, well, throw a fit about it, you're still going to get good service, of course, but we're not going to bend over backwards for you because it's literally beyond our control, and we're trying to do our best to still save your experience. But if you're going to be a prick about it, I'm not going to send you free desserts. I'm not going to give you an extra cocktail. Like, I'm not going to do any of that stuff. And it amazes me that
You're
people
so much
don't
more
get this.
vindictive than me.
Oh, come on, Leah. Like, you're going to bend over backwards for people who are being pricks.
Well, yeah,
Don't lie to me.
No, I do agree that you should not encourage
Thank
bad
you.
behavior. You should not encourage poor
That's
behavior.
all I'm saying.
But there is times where like I'm
You
like,
have to eat it. Yeah.
you have to eat it for sure.
There are times you have to eat it, but if I can get away with not eating it,
This is really
I'm
fun.
not going. Well, because I'm always thinking of my staff, always.
Sure.
And I'm
Sure.
always thinking of, there's no reason to mistreat the staff because the kitchen got backed up.
Right.
That's
I
our
know, I
fault.
agree.
The kitchen
But
got
I
backed
think,
up.
but
That's our fault.
that's a leadership thing. That's about managers
Right.
being on the floor, managers being involved in zones, managers, being active and taking the heat. Like one of my biggest, I opened a restaurant in DC called The Diplomat, which is very highly rated. And we walked
Yes.
in the door. I mean, it was ridiculous. We never even opened for lunch because we were so incredibly busy for dinner. And it's on the top, it's in the top 50 restaurants, grossing restaurants in the country. I think it was like number 26 this year on the top grossing restaurant.
Beautiful.
And it was an amazing experience. And one of the first couple weeks that we were open, I think we were comping like $20,000 to $40,000 a night in comps.
Oof.
And I'll tell you what, I learned there. I mean, I've never been someone who's hid from guests. Like I've always felt like, even as a server, in every role that I've ever had, I've always been like, be transparent. Like they would much rather know than not know. And with Le Diplomat, what I learned was to take 100% extreme ownership of the situation and say, look, you know what? Look, we are, we didn't meet your expectations.
We overbooked, we screwed up.
This isn't who we are. We don't feel like you've had a true experience, and we're going to take care of your dinner this evening. And here's my card. I'd love for you to come back another time. And, writing in that guest note, full comp on this day.
Right.
Invited back. Make sure to set. And that was just a huge lesson in taking, like I said, like extreme ownership of the situation and just being like, we're not hiding from this.
So here's a question. Do you know what percentage of people actually came back when that happened to?
Oh, people were blown away that we were full comp. I mean, we're talking 5, 6. Oh yeah. We're talking like, a $200 two-top. We're talking a 10 top for $2,000 full comp.
Right, but that's the whole point of hospitality.
The single diner at the bar that had a $50,
Doesn't matter.
And their appetizer never came. It's like an hour and a half later, and like, we're taking care of this. This isn't us. This isn't what we want to project. We're working through this. We, thank you so much. We're excited to be part of the neighborhood. I mean, literally, it was. Yeah,
but see, this is something that I always say, and people always ask me, and I want your opinion on this, is the food can be spectacular, but if the service sucks and people don't feel like that they are seen, heard, taken care of, they're not coming back.
No, I think that the service is absolutely what puts it over the top. And I think that the food can be mediocre, quite frankly. I mean, I think that
But you're treated like a king and everything's spectacular. Why not come back?
Look, I've had so many meals that were, perfectly executed. Okay. Like nothing wrong with it, like totally fine, that I'm just like, meh. But I've also had experiences where I was like, that server was insane. And that's the memory. Memory. And like, look, sure, I get it. Like, but to me, it's so funny because people always ask me about like wine and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I like wine. Like I love wine. It's great. But like, I don't even remember the wine. Like I remember that service interaction. Were they there? How did I ask for anything? Did I need anything? How passionate were they about what they were putting in front of me? Right. How excited were they to be there?
Right. Yes, because we all know when a staff is miserable, you can see it from a mile away.
No,
and it reads. And this is another big pet peeve of mine. Going back to when you were in culinary school and what we had talked about earlier, my big pet peeve is that we have all of the sort of hospitality schools, like Cornell's a big one, right? Mm-hmm. And all these kids come out of hospitality school and they go get jobs as managers, but
But
they've never actually worked in a restaurant. So how
mm.
can you train your staff in service when you yourself have never been in service? To
I
me, that's a recipe for disaster.
get upset about stuff like that because it's funny,
Go ahead, just say it. Don't censor.
There's a lot of good there. You and I have worked for managers, I'm sure, throughout our career that just aren't good managers. And you know what? They probably weren't good servers either. And they probably weren't a good bartender and probably weren't a good busser. And like,
Right.
I joke all the time. One of my best friends has this beautiful 36-seat restaurant in Chestnut Hill, and it's just the most picturesque. It's perfect. It's perfect. And one of his good friends, one of his servers, and she goes, we were understaffed the other night. And she's yelling at me. And I go, and you didn't call me? So I call him up and I'm giving him a raft of shit about it. And he goes, well, Leah, I felt bad. Like I didn't need him. I just needed a busser. And I go, you didn't know? I've won awards for that. I'm the best busser ever. And he goes, are you joking me? I said, no, you need help. And if I'm not working, if I'm not busy, I will come help you. I'll bus. I don't care. And his whole team was just like, oh my God, it was amazing having Leah here. Like the positive energy, she kept the pace. Like and it was like, that's right. Because if you are a good manager, you are an amazing busser. You freaking kill in the dish pit. You are the best expediter. You are a fantastic food runner. You are the best server. Like,
you're not hanging out in the back having shift meal. You're not
and smoking cigarettes or in the office on Facebook.
Right. You're not doing all your financials for tomorrow. No, if we're in service, you're in service. You do your paperwork later.
Right. Yeah. It's like, and I think that's what these people like. To me, when I was in culinary school, I worked full time. I worked full time in a restaurant while I was in culinary school. I have done every position in a restaurant.
Yeah.
So it's like I literally have. I mean, I've actually never been paid to be a dishwasher, so I take that back. But I've bussed, I've run food, I've expoed, I've served, I've made or deed. I've been a general manager. I've been a director of operations. I've done, and it's like, how can you expect to hold people accountable for a job that you do not know how to do?
That is my point.
If you haven't mastered it, then you can't do that. So I think that what is so sad about, and I get really frustrated with culinary schools and with like hospitality schools.
Hospitality schools, they're not training them properly.
It's not even a training thing to me. It's you are setting people up to feel like they are capable of running an operation that they are not capable of. Like you do not know.
That's because nobody teaches front of the house, Leah.
But nobody teaches front of the house. Do you see these kids coming out of culinary school going, I'm an executive chef? You just pulled out a measuring cup to make stock.
Yeah, I mean, right. But what I'm saying about teaching front of the house is I think it's important to get rid of that stigma, that divide between, so it's not East and West Berlin. So front of the house and back of the house work together. So when kids come out of hospitality management school, nobody seems to have an understanding of front of the house, of true front of the house, of true hospitality. Because let me tell you something, the job that we have in the front, it's a fucking nightmare. The amount that we have to learn, the constant training, wine classes, cocktail classes, the food menus. I will never forget till the day I died, the written test Anita Lowe used to give us for her menu.
They were the 24 pager at one place I worked. 24 pages.
I graduated college on Dean's List. I'm a smart chick. Her tests were the hardest tests I've ever had in my freaking life. So I could describe her lamb dish, where it came from, her inspiration in the world. Like I have never in my life. So it's like
I definitely think there's part of that, but I also think it's setting an unrealistic expectation coming out of school saying, you went to Cornell, or you, and look, I'll take it.
Right,
on the
that's
chin.
great.
You know,
I'm glad
you went to CIA. You're an executive chef material.
No,
you're not. Your bitch ass is getting paid $32,000 a year
to go peel potatoes and make stock. Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like I think that we're setting people up for failure because we're not being realistic, and I think that. You know, where I think it's amazing that people want to be in this industry because of all the celebrity chefs, and that's awesome. But it's like, you don't walk out and be that. Like, that is why there are 10 people that are nationally, not internationally ranked for this. And like John and I were talking about this the other day, because we're like, who is the next So
John
like,
is her husband, John Patterson,
yeah,
by the way,
sorry,
the
my
chef
husband.
at work. No,
So
that's why I'm here.
my
That's
husband.
why I'm here.
So but we're talking about like who are these people? Like these kids are trying to be like they're trying to emulate Danielle Boulud and Thomas Keller and Grant
And
Atchis
Bourdain
and
and
Anthony Bourdain, all these guys. It's like Gordon Ramsay. There are Renee Renzepi. There are 10 of these guys. 10 total people. And it's like, you're not good. You're not that good. Like, and even Eric Ripert. Eric Ripert has one restaurant and he is international.
Yeah.
He's amazing. But it's like, if you
One.
think about these guys, like, and you and I have worked with some of these guys, and
Yeah.
like, if you watch Gordon Ramsay in a kitchen, you will be like, holy shit.
Right.
He is so good. And he is working so that he's got so much going on, and
He's precise.
it
And the
is
same with Eric Ripert. Eric,
impressive.
people think that Eric shows up every day.
Oh,
Eric is at Roberta Den.
Perfect
He's
example.
in that kitchen every day.
Jean-Georges is in
Same.
Jean-Georges on that circle 5 nights a week, and
Yeah.
that's why he's fucking Jean-Georges.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I think people need to understand. They need to get a more realistic, I was working in corporate dining a little while ago, a few years ago, and in the summer, it's time for internship. And we had somebody from Cornell Business School come in. And I was like, you're going to train with me for a day front of the house. And he was like, okay, this is great. He knew nothing about front of the house. And that is why I brought this up to you, because and God bless him, he was great. He was a great sport. When I said to him, you're going to management school, you're going to run a restaurant. Don't you think you should learn how the front of the house works? And he kind of looked at me. He's like, oh, it never dawned on him because he never sees himself having to wait tables or bartend.
It does. Oh my God.
So this is what I'm saying.
It's your whole job.
That's
your whole job.
Right. You better, let me tell you something.
Bartender, busser, runner, server, and part therapist. That's your job.
Everything. Yeah. When I was an AGM, I did everything. You need somebody in the back. We had a dishwasher call out. Guess who was washing dishes that day? That was me. You need to do everything. Somebody gets sick midway through. Happens all the time.
No problem.
Guess what? I'm in their station.
Right.
So, you have to know how to do this because it's live theater and shit happens.
Yeah.
And so you have to know how to take over, right?
Yeah.
All right, Leah. So I want to wrap this up a little bit. I just want to go over a couple of things. So since you and I are both ladies and we know how this industry is, have you found any challenges specifically for women, both front of the house and back of the house?
I feel like
that come to your top of your head.
Well, I feel like I'm like the Pamela Anderson of the restaurant industry. I don't know if you've read her topics on like her thought process on like the Harvey Weinstein scandal and whatnot.
Harvey Weinstein.
But
Pamela Anderson, like from Baywatch?
Yes, like Barb
No,
Wire.
I can't wait to hear this. Go ahead, please.
So I feel like really, really fortunate. And, we've talked about this before. Like my husband's been sober for 12 years. I'm really not a big drinker. A lot of restaurants have like shift drinks after work. And like, I've always been someone who hasn't like really partook in that, I guess.
Right.
I don't know what I've got the wrong word, but
yeah.
So
you never had one.
When I was 15 years old, my first cooking job in a private country club, it was like, this is like 2002 or something like that. And the guy,
I love that you're aging yourself, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So the executive chef was this guy, his name was Chef Zan Mahler. He was amazing. And he was coming from being a corporate executive chef for Donald Trump in AC, because this was like in Jersey area.
Back in the day, right.
And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe that you quit that job. He goes, oh, I didn't quit. He's like, I was so fucked up all the time on drugs and so drunk all the time. He's like, I got fired because I couldn't handle my shit. He goes, let me give you one piece of advice. He's like, Leah, if you decide right now, he's like, you're 15 years old, you can't even legally drink. If you decide right now that you are in this industry, every night is happy hour. You know everyone. You make $300, you spend $400 at the bar. He's like, if you decide right now that you are not going to make every night of your life happy hour, if you're not going to let every night be Friday night, he's like, you will far exceed your peers. I was 15 years old. It was extremely impactful. So
great advice. What a blessing for that. Yeah.
Huge, right? Now, that being said, it has positioned me differently than other women because I haven't been in the same zones. haven't
because you don't put yourself in the situation
I don't put myself there. And I think that people get uncomfortable when I say that, because I don't think that anyone is asking for it. Okay. I'm not saying that. But let me tell you something. Whenever there's alcohol, whenever it's late night, nothing fucking good happens after midnight, 6 beers in. I'm sorry. You're not going over for tea and fucking cookies. Like,
right.
So for me, I think that, and I also feel like the way that you behave in the restaurant, the way that, and I said it earlier, if I take the room, I walk in, I'm fucking in charge here.
Because you're setting boundaries
I'm
is what
in
you're
charge.
really doing.
Exactly.
You're
and I
setting
set
boundaries.
that with my guests, and I set that with my coworkers, and I set that with the chefs, and I make it very, very clear that I am here to work, and I am here to outwork.
And nothing else will be tolerated.
And that is it. And if you want to fuck with me, you're going to get a swift kick in the ass.
Right.
And I've been very fortunate. I have never, I've not had those things happen to me.
You've not had the situation like the spotted pig or, right.
I'm very fortunate. And like I said, I don't think these girls are asking for it. I think that these girls feel safe around somebody and they're had. I don't think that people are intentionally putting themselves in these situations. I think that it happens. I think there's a lot of dickbags out there. Like, I mean, you worked for Mario at one time. I mean, we've all had friends that have, worked for these guys.
No, we've all known somebody who's worked with Mario, and we knew his reputation. Did I think it was as bad as the rape room? No, of course not. But we knew that his reputation was he was a pig, and we all knew this, so we stayed away.
So we
if we could.
We're not engaging there.
Right.
We're not.
We didn't engage.
And that's what Pamela said.
Right.
She goes, "Look, someone's reputation. Don't call their bluff. Don't call their bluff. Don't knock on the door. Just don't do it."
I kind of love that you're quoting Pamela Anderson.
And if you're going to knock on the door, you know what you're getting into. And I think that people call people's bluffs. I'll tell you what, people don't change.
I mean, I hear what you're saying with the fact that you're quoting a Baywatch star, just like there's a joy. There's a joy that I have from that.
When I read her shit on that, it really spoke to me because I was like,
there is something really truthful to it, but then there's a flip side to it where, like, I'm going to go back to some of these ladies that worked at the Spotted Pig. And this is where I think a lot of people don't understand. If you are a single income household, you have health insurance from this job, it's not easy to just say, you know what, fuck you, I'm out.
I know that.
Especially when you're making a lot of money, because the servers at one point were walking with a lot of money. I don't know what it's doing now. I don't begrudge any of the people that still work there any money. I hope they're still doing great. I just hope they're safe. But it's not so easy to just say, fuck you and get out. However, but you have a point about setting boundaries, and you're right. If you can, because you and I have been in a similar situation where nobody's fucked with me because I've done the same thing. I set boundaries. I don't go out drinking with everybody. I don't go out, like, I come in, I do my shift, I do my job, I go home. I don't go into the lifestyle. That can be part of the problem. What happened at Spotted Pig, that's not really the problem. It's that they worked for a dick. And everybody turned a blind eye, and these women were vulnerable.
But I also feel like, to me, you talk about, you're paying your bills or whatever. Like,
I have a mortgage. I'm a single income household. I have health insurance. What am I going to do? I can't just quit. Nobody can afford Manhattan on unemployment, which is $400 a week, by the way, guys.
Right. I know. But I feel like there is a level of like, okay, how am I going to get out of this? And, I was in a situation where I was in a role where I had a partner who was messing around with one of my hostesses. Mm-hmm. And I had another hostess come to me and say, do I have to have sex with him to get my shifts back? And I was like, wait a second. Like, I had no idea. I had no idea that, like, he had kind of threatened to take her. I didn't realize this had gone down. And I was like, oh, no. And I went right to him. And I was like, I don't care what you do. I don't care who you sleep with. She's of age. You're a grown ass man.
You're both consenting. Great.
Don't you dare do it in my restaurant. Don't you dare. And don't you dare make this girl feel uncomfortable. And I hit it right. I hit it head on. I was like, no. This is my territory.
Right. But that's the difference, Leah. At the Spotted Pig, they didn't handle it head on. They turned a blind eye. You handling it is exactly what should have happened.
You're supposed to do.
Exactly what should have happened.
I'm the leader. It's my job. It's my job. I am not.
Those girls at Spotted Pig should have been protected.
Yeah, that's what
Like
I'm
you
there to
protected
do.
your girls,
That's what
right?
I'm there to do. Like I'm there
Yeah.
to take care of every single, that's my job. My job is to take care of all of you.
Right. And don't you feel that as women in this industry? I mean, God, we can go on for hours about this. But don't you feel as women in the industry, it's a little bit more challenging for us because we have to set those boundaries. We have to be a little tougher. We have to be a little stronger because this is a debaucherous sort of industry.
Sure, but again, I think it comes down to, I guess I don't think I'm normal in this regard because I feel like, because I decide like I'm not going there. Like I'm just not. Like
Right.
and I feel like I've been very successful because of it. And I've even had worked with chefs that like I've heard like after the fact, like after I've left or whatever, like, well, that guy, did you ever hear about this story about this guy, or this story about this guy? And I'm like, my God, I never even got that. I
It
never
never
even
came to you,
saw
right?
it because I'll tell you what, they didn't even bother. They didn't even think about crossing me like that. So yes, do
Right.
I think that, I don't know. Like I said, I'm the wrong person to talk to from
Well,
a
not really.
women's
I
lib
mean, I think your
standpoint,
advice
but
there is,
you
to set boundaries, but sometimes in the case of Ken Friedman with Spotted Pig, he didn't give a shit. He crossed the boundaries anyway. And so then, I have not been in that situation like he hasn't and you haven't either, but it does exist in our business. We
sure,
can't say that it
sure.
doesn't.
I
I
just
think
think
it
it's
actually
important.
exists in a lot of businesses, not just
I think it
hospitality.
exists in a lot of businesses, but I think because of the drinking piece, it
Yeah.
exacerbates it. It makes it bigger.
The social feel.
Right. It's like you
Yes.
kind of feel like you're friends when you're not. If you're in like a linear or more of a linear organization where like you work here and like your boss is this person, this boss is it's a little bit different. But when you're
Right.
hanging out with everybody, there's those blurred. It's like blurred, and like I said, the
Right.
drinking thing, and then there gets
Well, whenever
drugs get
alcohol is
involved.
involved and the drugs get involved and the sex gets involved, and then it's like a whole, it's a
Yeah,
whole ball of
crazy.
wax. I know. All right. So I want to wrap this up because literally, we're going to do another one of these
I know.
guys,
I'm like,
by
we
the
didn't even
way.
talk about anything.
We actually, that's not true. We talked about a lot. This was good because what this did is it gave everyone watching, I hope, really good insight from what it's really like to work in restaurants and how people who come from back of the house go to the front of the house, front of the house go to back of the house, what it means to work together as a team, what we feel hospitality is. It's about the guest experience, how to take care of your staff, proper training. I mean, we actually covered a lot of stuff, which is really good for anybody who works in the restaurant industry to see, and also for
Yeah.
people who dine out all the time to really see what people. This is an actual profession. Like I said earlier on, people don't think this is. They think it's just sort of like purgatory or something, like it's a waiting period until
It
something
is
else
from time
happens.
to time.
It is from time to time. It can, right now in December, it's definitely Dante's
It's
third circle.
brutal,
But
brutal.
this is a place where, yes, of course, if you're an actor, you can come
Wow.
make money and leave when you're pursuing other things. But it's also a place where you can have a wonderful career. And
Yeah.
so I think that it's great that we
Food is
flushed a lot of
life.
that out. It is life, yeah.
Create and savor yours. Like that.
Exactly. Well, Leah, thank you. We're going to do
Oh, you're
another round.
welcome.
We're round two where we're going to go more in depth. I want to talk the next time we do this. I want us to talk about reservations
Okay, that's
because
cool.
that's a big pet peeve of mine. People not honoring reservations, or they
Okay.
show up at 7:30 for a 7 o'clock reservation, then want to have drinks at the bar, and then it's a nightmare.
Hmm.
And tipping and this whole Danny Meyer
Oh
hospitality.
my
Oh,
God. I
I
have no
please.
time for that. So
Yeah, so you and I, you know how I feel about him.
yeah.
It's not, I don't feel very kindly about him at all. So we're going to go into that. So those are the two things we're going to talk
Okay,
about
cool. I
next.
love that.
Okay, great.
Let me know.
So thank you for joining me. I want to
Of
thank
course.
everybody for watching Turning Tables. I am your host, Krista Lepore. If you want to shout at me, any questions about anything Leah and I talked about, any comments, concerns, anything you want to see me discuss here at Turning Tables, you can always find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, at KristaLepore.com. And you can check out my YouTube channel where I talk about all of the national food holidays and how they came to be. So until next time, this is Turning Tables. I will see you then. Cheers.